from Bob Woodward's new book titled Rage.
I think there is systematic or institutional racism in this country.
Well, I think there is everywhere. I think probably less here than most places, or less here than many places.
Okay, but is it here in a way that it has an impact on people's lives?
I think it is, and it's unfortunate, but I think it is.
And joining me now, Omarosa Manigault-Newman, former senior official in the Trump White House. Omarosa is also the author of the book Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House. Welcome back to the broadcast, Omarosa. We're making a habit of this, in part because you have spent years with Donald Trump before and during the presidency. So I'm going to play a little more from that interview, more somewhat alarming sound, a bit from last night as well, in just a moment. But first, what you just heard, what did you make of that?
You know, I think that Donald Trump has shown African Americans over and over again that he does not care about the community. I mean, if you just look at what's happening with unemployment numbers, he touts that African Americans have high levels of unemployment numbers, but we're not seeing that in the community. He has not created domestic policy, particularly for African Americans, that would make them feel like they want to give him another 4 years. If you look at what's happening with COVID, for instance, the community that's being impacted the most are minority communities, and African Americans particularly. If he cared about African Americans the way he continuously says he does, he would implement a plan to address the fact that African Americans disproportionately have been impacted by this disease. But Donald Trump does not care. He cares more about his tea time than making sure that African Americans have the policies and that he implements them in a way that they can benefit and live the American dream.
So I'm going to play a very interesting soundbite here from the interview when Bob Woodward asked the president about white privilege. Let's all listen.
Do you have any sense that that privilege has isolated and put you in a cave to a certain extent, as it put me and I think lots of white privileged people in a cave, and that we have to work our way out of it to understand the anger and the pain, particularly black people feel in this country?
No, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that at all.
What drank the Kool-Aid? I mean, what do you think he meant by that?
I mean, every chance that he gets, he tries to trigger racial terms and racial emotions, the decisions that he's made about even having his convention in Jacksonville during Axe Handle Sunday, his decision to go to Oklahoma during one of the most painful weekends for a rally. Donald Trump doesn't say anything kind of haphazardly. He knows the pain that he is inflicting. But African Americans have become keen to his ways. We're no longer buying these little platitudes that he's throwing. By the way, his statements come from his heart. He does believe that white Americans are elite to black Americans. He believes that he does not have to attend to black Americans because he does not relate or connect. He is the leader of all Americans, but he has made no attempt whatsoever to make any kind of entrees or to even truly have significant outreach. And may I just make one point, Alex? In his White House, for instance, the hiring practices have been abysmal. I mean, he has Schedule Cs and SES appointees. I mean, they are African-American appointees are non-existent. If you look at his cabinet, of course, there's Ben Carson, but there are no other African-Americans. If you look at his senior staff, there are absolutely no African-Americans. Donald Trump does not care about the black community.
Look, Omarosa, you bring up the staffing, Ben Carson notwithstanding, there's not a lot of diversity in the White House. Why do you think there is any support for Donald Trump among the African-American community? What accounts for that support?
Well, that question, I mean, it's a very broad question to address in such a short amount of time, but I'll take a bite at it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll take a bite at it. Like you said, I met Donald Trump in 2003. And when I met him, you know, he was that symbol of aspiration. You know, I had rappers and actors and elite African-American athletes who associated themselves with Donald Trump because of that aspirational aspect. And so the reason you see his performance, particularly in 2016, being 13% among African-American males is because he made overtures to African-American men. Certainly, African-Americans have been disenchanted with the Democratic Party. There's no question there. They have been looking for leadership from the party over and over again. And in some cases, they've been disappointed. But I have to tell you, there is no reason whatsoever for African Americans to look at what Donald Trump has done or failed to do in the last 3 years and decide to give him his vote. In fact, Donald Trump needs to go November the 3rd. And if you look at the Biden-Kamala team, I looked at their platform last night. I took a look at their website. I took a deep dive into the policies that they are proposing. And if implemented, then African Americans certainly will benefit and prosper.
You know, he keeps going back to the scare tactics about the suburbs. Let's take a listen together to what he said last night about it.
They were playing with the zoning so they can build projects in the suburbs. And I said, we're going to end it. Somebody said, sir, let's just amend it. I said, nope, we got to end it. End it. I want to end it. I don't want to have a lesser version. I was talking the other day. Darling, somebody just moved next door. Who is it? It's a representative of Antifa. She will look at her husband and say, darling, we're out of here. We're out of here. Antifa.
I mean, Trump supporters, do they buy this kind of rhetoric?
Well, first of all, let me be very clear. All Americans deserve to have affordable housing. And the idea that Donald Trump would say that one American should not live in this area or that area, it's a grievous. But his supporters, some of them who live in communities that do not have access to a diverse community, may actually believe him. But those scare tactics, I think, are ineffective. And let me tell you why. No one believes anything that's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth anymore. I mean, this idea that you could identify someone moving in next door by a group that makes up like 2%. I mean, it makes no sense. But I will say that he is desperate. And we see that because he keeps amping up these scare tactics and saying things that he believes that suburban voters will trigger and then go to the polls and vote for him. But we can see that even that group is abandoning Donald Trump.
Yeah. Hey, were your ears burning in the last hour? Because I did an interview with Emily Jane Fox about Samantha Cohen, whom I understand ended up in your office while doing a White House internship. And for those who may have missed it, she's Michael Cohen's daughter. What was that like? I mean, I guess you saved her from an internship that otherwise was not up to her liking, shall we say.
Well, let me just first say Samantha is a brilliant young woman, and she was neglected in the First Lady's office. I mean, I'm sure you read the Vanity Fair article. I mean, they stuck her in a corner and gave her some kind of, a terrible job. But when she came to my office, she was so eager to do some substantial work. And the work that she did in my office was incredible. And it centered around policies that helped identify women who were falling through the crack for STEM. And she took a deep dive and she went in. She also did work for the Peace Corps. Samantha deserved better, and that office was failing her. I was happy to have her come into the Office of Public Liaison. And I believe that any of these wonderful, brilliant young people who want to serve their country should have an opportunity to do so. And Sam did so. And now she's thriving. But what's happening with her father, I mean, when I think about what's happened to Michael Cohen's family as a result of the threatening, the intimidation, the retaliation that this president has directed towards them, it just breaks my heart. And it should break all Americans' hearts to know that Donald Trump put Michael Cohen, Samantha's father, back into jail because he was intimidated by the stories that Michael Cohen would tell in his upcoming book.
Well, I'm sure Samantha was very grateful for her time spent with you in the White House.
She's awesome.
You did a good thing for her. All right. Thank you so much, Omarosa. Good to see you.
Thanks,
the big
Alex.
changes coming to the NFL on this first Sunday.